So here's a real quick video. I'm just going to explain a couple of theoretical concepts about playing over dominant seventh chords, particularly in the style of a blues. So if you think of your standard A blues, whether it be in terms of soloing, most players of sort of a beginner to intermediate level will use the A minor pentatonic scale. And that works up until an extent, but it doesn't actually fit the chord technically. And when players become more advanced and they want to improve their melodic playing within soloing, this can become a real problem. So if you're playing against an A7 chord, first thing to do whenever you're soloing is to figure out what you're actually playing over, because if you don't understand what you're playing over, it makes it very hard to make decisions about what notes are going to sound good. So in an A7 chord, we have an A note, a C sharp, an E, and a G. So that's 1, 3, and 5 from the A major scale, and then a flat 7. So that technically means that the mode that we would use overall would be the A major scale, but with a flat 7. Now that's called the Mixolydian mode. Don't worry about that too much at the moment. But what we have identified is that we've got an A, the C sharp is a major third, not a minor third. The fifth is a perfect fifth, so it's the same in a minor key as it is the major, and we've got a flat 7. Now if we think about our A minor pentatonic, what notes have we got in that we're going to use when we're soloing, you know? We've got an A, that's the root note, that's going to sound pretty good. We've got a C. Now, in our A7 chord, we had a C sharp, so that's going to instantly clash. So if you think of your A7 chord here, the third string, that note that you're playing at fret 6 is a C sharp. That is going to clash with the C that you're playing in the minor pentatonic scale like this. Oh, there's a pretty nasty sound right there. So if you're soloing away and you're putting a lot of emphasis on a C note, and the guys in the band are playing and really emphasizing that, or you know, the overall tonality, the bass player's walking away, C sharp. You need to be really careful with that. So I'm not saying don't touch the C, it's a really, really important note within it, but it's got to be managed carefully. We'll come to how to do that in a little moment. So we've got A as our root note, C sharp, which technically we're going to think of right now as being the minor third or the sharpened 9 of A7. But within this scale, it's a flat 3, it's a minor third. We get the D, which is the fourth note of the scale. That's a pretty innocuous note, it doesn't really matter too much. It's going to sound okay, but it's not going to sound particularly in or out. It's a relatively stable note. Same with the fifth, but the fifth has a little bit more gravitas because it's within the chord. So that's a pretty safe note right there. And then the flat 7, which is the G. So we get root, flat third, fourth, fifth, flat 7. Now the flat 7 is going to sound good because in a dominant 7 you get that little bit of tension off the G. So your G's there and there in your standard position. So most players are quite used to doing that bend from the G into the A, and the reason that sounds good is you've got the tension if I'm playing a little bit of the chord there and emphasizing that G, and then you go into your, and you kind of release it when you go into the A note. So that sounds great. Now, like I say, the D and the E are going to sound, you know, relatively stable, but the C definitely does not. So that there is a really interesting note, because like I say, it shouldn't really be there, but it kind of works because it phrases and gives a little bit of a clash, as we mentioned. So if you use it nicely, quite often a quarter tone bend can be quite a nice effect, as you heard in that little example. Now what I would encourage players to do is to look at what other options are available. So you have the major pentatonic at your disposal in this position as well. So the major pentatonic contains A, B, C sharp. So we've got an in note on the third there, that's cool. The fifth, which is the E, and then the sixth of the scale, which is the F sharp. Now that's going to have a very, very different sound. So all of a sudden, we're going to be playing around with notes that contain the root, the third, and the fifth, and then you get this F sharp. Now the F sharp being a major sixth, it just happens to sound quite nice. You get these kind of chords from it, and that's when you kind of then get this, which is natural to kind of blues. So an F sharp is going to be a nice little note for us to play around with. We've got the C sharp, which will harmonize. So we're good to go there, and that's going to be a really, really sweet note. I would say the sweetest out of any when you're playing over a blues. Hit the third, the major third, is going to sound great all day long. So if you try and emphasize that when you're playing, play some minor lines and then resolve it to that note there, fret 6, which is the C sharp on string 3, or fret 4 on string 5. You get this kind of thing. You can hear all of a sudden you've got a much more harmonized and brighter sound because you're bringing out the major quality of that third there. Now, when you're playing around with this, you can play your minor pentatonic lines, mix those, and then finish the major. Similarly, you could do it the opposite way, go major pentatonic, and finish minor. And you hear that contrast between the two. That's the interesting thing about playing music. It's mixing tensions and releases. And obviously you need to use your ears when you do this. I cannot emphasize that enough. Just knowing the theory is just half of it. You've got to use your ears to be able to do it. And all the best blues players do this quite naturally. And they've learned this in a very organic fashion, just over years of playing and learning other licks and things like that. But knowing what you're doing gives you the chance to sort of speed up that process. You still need to listen to what you're playing, absolutely, but you can really, really enhance your playing by developing that kind of skill set. Now, here's a little trick. Obviously, you've got the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic in this fifth fret position. And I've identified the minor third here, the clash note, and the consonant note, the major third at fret 6. Same thing here if you want to go fret 3 to 4, exactly the same thing. Now here's a cool little tip for you as well. If you're thinking, oh, this is a really awkward shape to work on in terms of developing my my understanding of the fretboard, here's a quick little tip. If you take the minor pentatonic from A minor and start it at fret 2, that is technically, if you start on this note, forget the root, make this your new root, that is now A major. So you'll see things like when you do your lines, that kind of stuff, you're into a major pentatonic. So you could actually just even go minor, major, minor, major. And you can really flow those lines in different directions there. If I do this without trying to talk over the top of it, hopefully you'll be able to hear the combination of the two. I'll just give a quick example. So if you think like just play around with it and just jam on it, and really try and work on listening to where the tension and release needs to come. So if you're playing a really minor line, you know, you can just change it at the end. If you're going really major, like minor, chuck the little flat 5 note in, you know, your blues go for a little bit of added effect as well. And that is a really, really cool way of approaching an A7 chord. Rather than just thinking in terms of one scale, try and mix in your major scale and your minor pentatonic, so your major pentatonic and your minor pentatonic. If you want to take it a little bit further and really think about what other notes are available to you, just colour in the dots. That's the way I think about it. If you want to put the rest of the mixed Lydian notes in, all you need to do from the major pentatonic is add the 4th and then add the flat 7. So you only add 2 notes. You just add the B and the G, and then you get, you know, that kind of stuff going on. If you want to do the minor sort of thing, you can play the Dorian mode, which is again a little bit outside, but kind of cool still. So you just add the B, which will be the 2nd. You've got 4 and 5 already. We just need to add the major 6, which is your F sharp. You've already got that note, which is the flat 7, and that one, which is the root. So you just add the B and the F sharp, and you've got it. And then you can float all of them together. So you'll get your major pentatonic, minor, Dorian, and the mixed Lydian. There you go. There's a different way of approaching an A7 chord. You know, really, really working on trying to incorporate different sounds and different tonalities around it. So having that tension and that release. Once you've got that down, try and learn those shapes, the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic, and then the Dorian, which is the sort of minor one that will work really nicely, the mixed Lydian, which is the major version that will work really nicely. And try and learn them in 5 positions. Try and solo in each individual position. You don't need to run across all the strings. You know, you can keep it really tight to just 2 or 3 strings and just develop some really cool ideas. B.B. King, John Mayer, all of those guys spend a lot of time in just one position, really working the melodic side of something, you know. Whatever it might be, and try and work that. The next thing you can then do is try and approach the same thing when you go to the D9 chord. Try and do the same thing off a D, and then if you get really good, try and do it off the turnaround. The E to the D, the A, and then if you want to, go alto dominant on the 5 chord at the end. Anyway, I hope this has been of use to you. If you want to learn more about this, feel free to get in touch with me, or anything else relating to chords, harmony, soloing, whatever it might be. Take care.